Welcome to the Dream Plan Start Grow Show, where the goal is to provide you tips and tools to create and execute your business plan for success. Welcome back to the Dream Plan Start Grow Show. My name is Allison Turner. So I started these interviews because I really love entrepreneurship, and I believe we can learn from each other and, the mistakes we've made and the successes we've had as well. So whether you are brand new to business, you're thinking about starting a business, or even a seasoned business owner, please check out my podcast at dreamplanstartgrow.com or my YouTube channel, Dream Plan Start Grow. Today, I'm honored to have with me Michael Butler, who's an author, speaker, media coach, and owner of Beyond Publishing. And that company has published over 759 books in 59 nations. So welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining me today.
It's great to be here, Allison, and kudos on your show and kudos on everything you're doing. I've been hearing a lot about you for a long time, so way to go.
Thank you. And I know we met in Texas when you were a speaker at a conference I attended in Texas, and you're still on my list. I haven't published that first book or written the first book. I guess I got to write it first before I publish it. But so you're still on my list at some point in time. So hopefully we'll be doing some business down the road.
Yeah, actually publishing it before you're wring, it's a new phenomenon. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Publish it first and then write it as you're launching it. There's a lot of opportunity there. Yep.
All right. And with all these AI tools, I can figure out how to do that maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of speakers call and say, hey, listen, I've got a conference next week. And literally we launched the book in a week, selling a book cover, showing up on stage with a book with blank pages, but you've got a book cover, and then we ship it in 2 weeks. So it can be done. I don't recommend it, but it can be done.
Yeah. I like that time constraint sometimes, so you never know.
Deadlines are a good thing. Deadlines are good.
Yeah. Exactly. But I got to launch this one site that I'm launching right now first. So that's launching at the end of the week. So once I get through that, then I got a couple other things that are going to come in front, and then we'll talk about the book. But so how did you decide to start a book publishing business? Because I would find that would be, and I know you're a specific, explain maybe to the audience, because I know you're not a publisher like the big ones that we hear about, who I can't even think of one name right now, or you're not just an online publisher either, but you're kind of a hybrid, right, in between those two?
Yeah, a lot of people, Allison, thought the internet killed publishing, and they thought, the internet is, people aren't going to read anymore, but the opposite is true. People are consuming content now more than ever. And the fact is that when it comes to books in English, 76% of books in English are bought and read outside the U.S. So if you're writing a book to establish credibility and to build your brand, that's one of the best ways to do it, to get on more stages and to get more media and to get people talking about you more, not to mention charging more for clients, charging more for coaching, charging more for speaking. A book does a lot of things. One thing it does is it helps your team and your corporate know what the mission is of your company. Before the internet, I ran traditional businesses for years, and anytime we would get the same question 3 times, I would print a brochure. And now when you get frequently asked questions, if you're a company, let's say you're a landscaping company or a plumbing company, and you get the same questions week after week, people calling your company, right? You're a media company, so you get the same questions. You just simply put together an FAQ, which are the frequently asked questions that your customers are asking you right now, and then you feature your high-ticket items that give you the greatest margin, and that becomes a best-selling book. And when people are in your waiting room, when people are on your Facebook page, when people are on your website, they see the book. And since you wrote the book on it, you become the expert. So to answer your question, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek at the beginning, kidding about people launching a book before it's done. But the truth and reality is it really makes sense. Recently, I met this gentleman. He owns the largest window and door manufacturing company in Michigan. His name's Alan Asp, and he was speaking in Maui the next week. And we were in Vegas at a business conference. And I said, Alan, you hire me to publish the book. I'll fly to Maui. When you're speaking next week in Maui, I'll be selling the book. And so we created a cover design for him that week. Wow. And literally he went #1 with the pre-sales on Amazon, and we garnered a bunch of print books. Had another similar situation. a business coach in North Carolina. He called me. He was freaking out because he was going to be on the news the next day. I said, why are you freaking out? He said, I don't have any books yet. I said, listen, we've got the cover done. Go to Kinko's, print it out, grab your Scotch tape, and you're going to tape up a faux cover. Just grab a hardcover out of your library, Scotch tape it, hold it up, and talk about why you wrote the book. He got 39 orders from his website. We delivered those orders in about 2 to 3 weeks. And he actually got a couple of the people that bought books ended up becoming coaching clients. So the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. That's a Chinese proverb. And that's what the book is. The book is the anchor tenant for the business owner to create credibility. It's in your waiting room for businesses that still have waiting rooms, but it's there so everybody can see it.
Oh, that's awesome. And so how did you get started in this industry? Like what
it's
made
interesting
you start up with publishing?
I was in network marketing and direct sales. I really loved, I always had a knack for marketing. As a kid, my first business, I ran an ad in the newspaper when I was 15, and I got 14 lawn mowing jobs. And one thing I didn't consider, because I saved money for a lawnmower and a weed eater and everything, but I wasn't old enough to drive. And we lived 6 miles out in the country, and I had to hire my brother or one of my parents to drive me into town to service my lawn because I really didn't think I was going to get any jobs. But I've always kind of had a knack for sales and marketing, and I was in the direct sales and network marketing space. I love the aspect of personal development, built several big teams, one in the wellness space and one in the technology space. But even back then, that was 15 years ago, I was telling my distributors, you need to write a book, adopt a nonprofit, and get on stage and be a speaker. Otherwise, you're just a Me Too product arguing the merits of your Me Too product. But if you really want to stand out, you do a nonprofit, you write a book, and you become a speaker. And that makes all the difference, having an incredible story to tell. And so one thing led to another. We were marketing, this was before Facebook, we were marketing one of our reps on MySpace, and we had actually, she was a former Mrs. California, and she had written a book on human trafficking. And we took her book to a publisher and got her co-published. It was called More Than Rice, A Journey Through the Underworld of Human Trafficking. And she hired us to do the marketing. And as far as I can tell, I'm the first person, Allison, to ever tweet out an entire book on Twitter. This is back when Twitter was young. Ashton Kutcher had the largest following back then. We got her a movie deal with the book. By the time it launched, Title Card Pictures out of Vancouver optioned it for a short. And I said, wow, we've got something here with the internet. A lot of people say, it was the printing press that brought us out of the dark ages. But how I got into the publishing space was just recognizing the fact that if the printing press and the Bible brought us out of the dark ages, what will the internet do? That anybody with a smartphone can ask any question and get the knowledge they need to start the business. And I started looking seriously at the publishing space at that time, which ended up consulting with the publishing company out of Las Vegas, which ended up in me starting a publishing company a few years later. And now the rest, as they say, is history. It's been a fun ride. We've got authors. I've been to 30 countries supporting our authors. We go to all the major book shows of the world. But it's been a lot of fun to see authors like single moms and people starting their companies get on stages and get local media, and gain new clients as a result of their books. So that's really how I got into it. And I don't think I'll ever leave it. It's so much fun. Last year, we ghost wrote about 123 books. Wow. And about half of those were fiction. It's interesting because people will come to us with the business idea and say, I want to write the next Think and Grow Rich. And a lot of times we'll talk to them about a concept that would really work as a fiction book and set them apart as a master storyteller or an expert. And people love to read fiction, so it's opened a lot of doors for them.
Oh, that's awesome. So what differentiates you? Because I know there's other companies like yours out there. I know at least, I know a couple myself, and I'm sure they're all over the country and probably all over the world. So what differentiates your company from other publishing companies?
Well, like I said, we're very fast. We're very quick to market. Speed to market is very important. We had a health coach that was speaking at a conference in Colorado, and he called me. He had a month, and we got him launched. Actually, not with blank pages on this one. We actually got him launched with the real pages. The book written, edited, laid out, and ready to go within a month. And he spoke from stage and sold several hundred copies. So really speed to market. A lot of publishers will take a year to get your book to market. And let's face it, a lot of people choose the self-publishing route, and that's the right route for some people. It's not right for everybody. I've got a video out there on YouTube. If you type in my name, Michael D. Butler, and hybrid book publishing, there's one of three ways you can go. You can go self-publishing, hybrid publishing, or traditional. Self-publishing is when you do everything yourself, and if you like to edit, more power to you. If you like creating cover designs, more power to you. The challenge with self-publishing, it's really hard to get a self-published book into bookstores and libraries, almost impossible. And most people don't have the patience nor the time nor the bandwidth to learn how to do all those things. Not only editing and cover design, but you've also got to figure out how to do the interior design and the EPUB conversion, not to mention taking it #1 on Amazon, how to get global distribution beyond Amazon. The challenge with self-publishing, Allison, is the average self-published author never sells more than 200 books. And the fact is, Amazon's big in the US, but Amazon's only about 50% of the world's book sales. And so for a serious author that wants to make a global impact and get their book into bookstores and libraries and distribute it globally, then self-publishing's not the way to go for them. Most self-published authors will tell you that their second book, they end up going hybrid because they say, for the amount of time I put in and the amount of money I spent on doing all these different one-off pieces, I could have hired a hybrid publisher. And that's where we really come in and shine. We're a one-stop shop, and we have ghostwriters and editors and cover designers, and we deliver quickly because this is all we do every day. And we're not afraid. I've been called the Simon Cowell of book publishing. I'm not afraid to tell you if your baby looks ugly and send you back to the editing room or the drawing board or the cover design, because this is your brand. And your brand deserves to be elevated. The purpose of your book is to elevate your brand, and we'll give you feedback on that, whether or not it's going to do that for you.
Okay, great. And so do you incorporate marketing within the hybrid model, or are you just more like, let's get the book out as far as the cover design and the editing, ghostwriting, all those pieces? Do you incorporate any marketing at all, depending on the client?
Great question. We market all of our authors, all of our clients. Okay. So there's several things that we do. In addition to the Amazon bestseller, we take your book to all the major book shows of the world. We take your book to Frankfurt, Germany. We take your book to Guadalajara, Mexico. Those are the top 2 book distribution conferences in the world for book distributors. We put your book in our catalog. So your book actually has a listing in our catalog, and our team is there promoting your book. But not only that, we give you your first media interview for free, either in our TV studio in Dallas, and Fox and ABC use our studio a lot in Dallas, or we do a virtual interview like this where you get the lower thirds with your website and we get you branded properly. But we also push you out through our podcast network. And we have a private Facebook group with over 1,400 authors, independent authors, traditionally published authors, our authors, and other authors there. They have podcasts. They're podcast hosts. They host conferences on very niche specific topics, everything from relationships to parenting to finances to business startup to fiction lovers and children's books. We've got every genre, and those podcasters are always looking for people to interview. And so we introduce you there. We give you the first interview for free, but we also push you out. And then since we're making a little bit on the back end, the author's making the lion's share of the royalties. We're making a little bit on the back end. So we're actively engaged and pushing you out on all of our social media, our websites, everywhere books are sold. You can literally, with all of our clients, you can Google your ISBN number and see how many hundreds of sites your book is on, including Target.com, Walmart.com, of course, Amazon in all 15 countries, BarnesandNoble.com, chapters up in Canada and everywhere books are sold. So to answer your question on marketing, you get it because you're a marketer. Marketing is so important. And one of the reasons to write a book is to be found for your keywords. But there's a lot of self-published authors. They don't know how to optimize their book listing, and therefore they get passed over. They may have written a really good book on finances or relationships or how to XYZ, and their book's just not getting found, discovered, and therefore it's not getting bought because nobody's finding it and talking about it. And we help with that.
Right. And I think that's probably the biggest, well, I shouldn't say the biggest difference, but one of the big differences between self-publishing and what you do, the hybrid publishing model, because, you know, even if you're really good at all the self-publishing stuff, you have your graphic designer doing that, they can lay it out, you know, get the ISBN. I mean, but then you still have to promote the book somehow. I mean, because even if you just stick it on Amazon, like you said, I mean, that's only one avenue to getting the book.
It's one channel. It's like building a house. People say, "Hey, I want to launch a book." It's like building a house. It's like, okay, great. Are you building a home in Montana or in Lower Manhattan? You know, it's all about location and where is it going to be facing the east or the west? You know, and I'll give you an example. Madison Malloy, she's a formerly raunchy comedian from New York and Colorado, and she decided during the pandemic to transition into a motivational speaker. So she came to us with an idea. She had written a book called Time to Lighten the F Up, and it's just a comical look at life and all things fun and whimsical to get us through the pandemic. So we put out a press release for her on that book, and you can actually Google Madison Malloy, Lighten the F Up. We did a launch party in New York for her. One of our billionaire friends hosted that for her, and she got tons of media. In fact, she got about 30 media interviews from New York to LA, across the country about that book, with her just speaking and her doing podcast interviews. So it's one thing to write a book, but if you rent a digital billboard on a deserted island, nobody's going to see it. And the last thing we want people to do, because she's got lofty goals of, you know, going straight to the top. She wants to be interviewed on Joe Rogan. That hasn't happened yet, but I said it's a progress. You know, we'll take some steps. So she's taken the steps, and she's definitely on her way. Watch Madison Malloy.
All right, I'll have to check that out, or check her out. So one of the things you did say a minute ago is, you know, your book is your brand, and I'm all about branding and keeping things consistent and all that. And I think that's true because, like you said early on as well, you know, you can do so much with a book. You mentioned that you tweeted the first book out or something like that, because your book, once you write it, does provide all the content you need, whether it's on social media, whether it's in your speeches, you know, and sometimes it's your speaker first and then you write the book from those speeches. So it could be the other way too. But I think that book is your brand is so critical, you know, because unless you're going to write a completely different genre. So, you know, I own this business, but if I want to write about, you know, maybe I want to write a fictional book and it has nothing to do with business. Okay. You know, that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different thing. But if I'm going to stay in the business world, you know, it would make sense that I'm going to write on either the business coaching side or the marketing side. That's, you know, or something in between those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And a good example of that is just writing a credibility book to get more customers. So this was going to be the first book I wrote called Bestseller Status, Becoming a Best-Selling Author in the Digital Age. This has helped thousands of people, Allison, write their best-selling book, but it actually wasn't the first book that I published. The advice of some of the women in my life said, the Single Dad Survival Guide, this book idea you've been talking about for years, that I was looking for this type of book about 20 years ago when I went through my divorce and my sons were 10, 8, 6, and 4. There was a lot of information online for single women going through a divorce. I saw almost nothing for single dads. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put this single dads book out first. And this got me a lot of podcast interviews. This got me a lot of high fives and fist bumps from dads that were kind of, you know, frustrated and looking for resources. And that book, I mean, I just did a media interview, NBC in Palm Springs, California, during the pandemic as a result of this book and about kids going back to school. And so they reached out to me as a result of this book. But this is what a lot of people would publish first, which would be the credibility book to get more customers in the door.
Right.
And then what I've done is I've continued to publish about 2 books a year. I've got a couple fiction books, but this book, since I'm a publisher, we deal a lot with public speakers. just like you work with a lot of public speakers. I said, you know what? I've been working with public speakers for years, from my time in network marketing, from my time being on stage for 14 years as a pastor. Let's write a book on finding the speaker's edge, turning your part-time passion into your full-time speaking career, speaking from stage and speaking online. I really decided to finalize this during the pandemic, so I launched it during the pandemic. And it's been a big hit for people that are just wanting to monetize. They've got a great workshop, they've got a great keynote or something, but they never really quite monetized it. And one thing I want to say about this too, because you're talking about all the things you can do with your book. You can tweet your book, do red carpets with your book. You can sponsor things with your book. Literally, it's a great idea if you're into child literacy. If you're doing a book for kids, for example, we've got the #1 selling children's series in North America for 8 to 11-year-olds called the Harry Moon series, and it's about a town that's stuck in Halloween that can't get out. And the young little hero is Harry Moon, and we did a series for the girls called Honeymoon. It's his sister. She's got her own series of 13 books called Honeymoon. And so it's great core values. It's something parents would love. There's nothing questionable or doesn't have a hidden agenda behind it or anything like that. It's something parents can feel really safe about their kids. So we market a lot to homeschoolers. They love it, but we sell it directly to schools. But one thing you can really do with your books is turn your books into a course. And so this is another thing I did during the pandemic. I said, during the pandemic, so many people wanted to write a book. I'd already written the book on how to write a best-selling book. Why not turn it into a course? So I taught it live 8 different times every week, 8 weeks in a row, 64 classes coming through there. So I had hundreds of people write their book. Many of those ended up publishing, getting their book out to the world. And it's called credibilitybook.live. And you go to credibilitybook.live and you've got these 8 video modules where I'm talking about how to write a chapter in 20 minutes. Who is your avatar? How do you come up with the title and subtitle they're going to actually sell? What do you put on the back cover of the book? Most new authors put too much on the back cover of the book. And I say a back cover of the book is like a billboard, and a front cover of the book is like a billboard. You're driving 80 miles an hour down the freeway. If you got too much on there, I don't know what it is you're selling me. And so a lot of things you can do with your book. And there is no limit. I mean, you can skydive with your book. You can get into media with your book. You can get on stages with your book. One of the best things you can do, and you're doing it here, is you're launching a podcast with your book and you're interviewing people around your book. I recommend to our authors, all of our authors that have done a nonfiction book, I say, take a week, and for 12 weeks straight, if you got 12 chapters in your book, do 12 weeks, go live on Facebook, record a podcast, and give us the behind the scenes stuff about each chapter in your book. Do a deep dive and go deep, and then also interview people around your book, because the doors that a book will open for your podcast, for your media, and then also turn all of your books into coaching programs to further monetize and to further help you to get more clients.
Right. No, that's great. I mean, because I think you just set it up as like, here's the plan. So if you're new to business, or if you're wanting to kind of elevate your business too, if you're more of a traditional business that, like we've been like that traditional marketing type of company, where you go out, you network, you meet new people. And so now building out those courses and building out those other pieces, that book can really be critical to do that.
Yeah, and for somebody that's already written a book that says, hey, there's been new things happen in my business, maybe since the pandemic or since you added a new vertical, go ahead and add another chapter to your book and do a second edition. And then on the front, you put updated and expanded content, and you put a new introduction in here and a new chapter all about the new thing you're offering. And then also you can feature some of your client testimonials in there that maybe weren't in the first edition. So you always be expanding. During the pandemic and before the pandemic, I shared the stage with the Think and Grow Rich author. I don't know why her name's slipping my mind here in a minute. I'll think of her in a second. Right. But you know her, and she wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She was the co-author on that series, and she's just an amazing woman. But every time she speaks, every time she's on stage, she speaks about her next 5 books. And that's what a book does. It's forecasting where you're going with your business. You want to write into the biggest verticals that are exploding in your industry and in your business, so you can be there and really be found with the SEO and the keywords. I know that's kind of your area of expertise, Allison, is embed your keywords, your expertise, and your testimonials by telling the stories of the clients you've been able to help. And when they're bragging about you, it's third-party credibility, but it doesn't seem so. It seems a lot more genuine and authentic coming from them.
Right. So when you started this book, started the book publishing business, so did you run into any challenges initially starting a brand new business?
Well, the biggest thing, because I had been looking at the space for a while, the biggest thing was looking at where publishing was evolving into. The first thing I noticed was that in 08 and 09, a lot of the big media companies, like CBS, were buying up companies like Simon and Schuster, and Simon and Schuster had already bought up the medium and small size publishers. And I says, why are these large traditional publishers buying up small, medium sized publishers? And I thought there had to be a reason for that. So I looked a little more deeply and realized that the internet had not killed publishing, and that people are reading now more than ever. And so it was just really figuring out where we wanted to differentiate, because the traditional side, the old model in the 70s and 80s was you wrote a really good book, and then you got on the phone and you called a New York publisher, you sent a query letter, you sent them a sample of your book, and then you waited, and maybe you sent out 200 query letters and you heard back from 2 or 3 companies, and they were all rejection letters. Because unless you had 2 million followers or had a daily TV show, if you weren't Joel Osteen or Oprah Winfrey, you didn't get a call back. And really, you wouldn't want to call back anyway, even if you did, because they would own the rights to your work. That's the traditional model, where they own the rights. They make the lion's share of the royalties. You can never repurpose any of that content, even though it's your intellectual property. You sign over the property rights, your IP, to the publishing company when you go traditional. And so we looked at all those models. We do have a traditional publishing company embedded within our hybrid company for people that maybe they are A-list celebrities, maybe they're politicians or pastors. We're working on a couple ghostwriting projects right now that we're launching in 2024 that will be under our traditional label brand. So that is something we do as well. But hybrid was out of the gate for us. It was the sweet spot for us, because for business owners like yourself that wanted to get a book to market very quickly, it was a way for them with a minimal investment, one time out of pocket, to get the book quickly that they needed and quickly get a return on their investment.
No, that's awesome. So what have been some of the greatest successes your company's encountered so far?
Well, I can remember in 2019, in fact, I just reshared on my Facebook yesterday. In 2019, pre-pandemic, I was in South Africa, and we were at a book launch. And Dr. Catherine Van Heerden, who had pretty much raised herself as a teenager, she grew up in apartheid, she was white, and she was living out of her car as a teenager. She put herself through high school and through college and got her doctorate. Some of her clients now are Coca-Cola, Heineken, South Africa Stock Exchange, some companies like that. She's done really well for herself, and she's doing 10 books with us. We've been publishing books for her since 2019. And at this first event that I came to in South Africa, she's brought me a lot of clients. We have about 20 clients in South Africa, but there were 2,000 women showed up, Allison, on a Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m., and they are there for 5 hours to celebrate Catherine and the other co-authors on this book launch. That's when I realized we had something very, very powerful here. From the hometown of Pretoria, South Africa, where Elon Musk is from, we were launching the book at a church. The women took over. There were only 5 men in the entire crowd of 2,000. And the reason I know there's only 5 men is because there were so many women there. They took over the men's bathrooms. And about 5 hours into this, I mean, we're in the middle of the city. There's no other place to go. We're looking around, and these guys, we cover for each other. We had to take over a bathroom. So we did it. We did it efficiently. We did it equitably, but we were in and out of there very quickly. But those ladies just show me how much that the book and the written word and your word, your book can really make an impact in the world. And so that's one of our great successes. Another great success I told you about early on, and the reason I got into that, started the publishing company, was Pamela Kennedy Chestnut and her book More Than Rice. When I realized we got it optioned for a movie, and that's when I started studying publishing and realizing, it's fun to market a business in a local area code and zip code, but wouldn't it be fun to market an author where we have no borders, boundaries, or language or cultural differences, and we can go global. And now you can be speaking on a webinar, and women in South Africa and South America and England and Malaysia can be buying your book at the same time, and it gets delivered to their house tomorrow, and you've got new clients for your coaching program because you were speaking and you didn't have to get on a plane. That to me is the biggest success, and it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is exciting because I think.
But I'll say this too. Her name was Sharon Lecter that I shared the stage with, and I wanted to remember her name. But and I just did a video about her recently, and her new book Exit Rich with Michelle has done really well. But anytime you hear her speak, she's talking about the next 3 to 5 books that she's got coming out. And so that's what a book does. A book is showing the world what you're monetizing next. And if you watch her very carefully, Sharon Lecter, every time she launches a book, and she's the brain behind the famous Rich Dad, Poor Dad series that sold over 30 million. Every time they wrote a new book, they sold 1 million copies. There's over 30 books in that series. I think 33 books in that series. And I can remember when my son was 11, he was reading Rich Kid, Smart Kid, my son Joshua. And he's gone on and done very well. I'm very proud of him. But Sharon Lecter has always got a plan that a book is basically a blueprint. It's a white paper for where we're going with the business. And then she'll do a workshop. She'll do a keynote around it. She'll do a mastermind around it. She's got a ranch in Arizona where you can come and pay top dollar to be with amazing people. And so to me, Allison, that's what it is. It's kind of a continual circle that never ends. And talking with Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul, endorsed Finding the Speaker's Edge.
Oh, wow.
He says, study
That's
this book and memorize every word. Butler says his coaching is outstanding. So I had to ask Mark, because I knew he and Jack Canfield launched Chicken Soup for the Soul pre-internet. I mean, sold 500 million books, and they launched it pre-internet. And I said, Mark, how did you do that with no internet? No email blasts, no joint ventures, nobody sharing. And what they did was they did AM radio interviews. That first year they did 600 AM radio.
600?
600 interviews between the two of them. They got other people talking about their book, and they were talking about their book multiple times a day from East Coast to West Coast. At 5 a.m., they were in California. They were in their PJs. They were up at 2 and 3 every morning.
Wow. No, that was the old way of marketing, I guess. Radio. I haven't heard that term for a while.
Yeah, radio.
But that's when you could walk into a bookstore too, and if it was a best-selling book, it would be on that best-selling shelf. So, and I know they hit that status as well. So, there's still a few bookstores out there. I was all excited. I think there's a Barnes and Noble is coming here.
20,000. Are you getting a Barnes and Noble?
Yeah, I'm all excited. I was like, oh, that could be dangerous. Because there's one in the next town north of me, which is, only about 10 minutes away. But I don't go up there all the time. This plaza where they're putting it is in the Trader Joe's plaza. And I'm like, oof, I love Trader Joe's. So I go to Trader Joe's quite frequently. So it's like almost next door. So
beautiful. There you go. That'll be a good place to meet clients.
Yeah, exactly. So where do you see the publishing business going at this point? Do you see it kind of staying where it is? Because I know you talked about at the beginning, you kind of studied it at the time, and that was 15 years ago. So where do you see it going now? Is it going to change? Is it going to evolve differently in the next 5 years?
Yeah. Since then we saw a lot of changes. We saw the U.S. go from 40,000 brick and mortar bookstores to 20,000, and a lot of companies went out of business during that time. Borders, Crown Books, a lot of companies went out of business. Barnes and Noble's not making any money. They're putting in new stores, but they're still breaking even. They're losing money. But here's the thing, that supports their online. Their brick and mortar supports their online store. So readership is up. Readership is going to continue to be up. And we've got a lot of our authors in bookstores for book signings. They love it. You don't really make any money with book signings, but it's just good prestige. It's good PR. It's a good photo op. The bookstore makes the money. But if you want to do it, we can certainly get you in the bookstores. We've gotten hundreds of our authors into bookstores. And certainly it's where it's headed with niche content. Right now, 60 to 70% of books globally read are nonfiction. They're fiction. People love to read fiction for entertainment. So it's romance novels. Our fastest growing category right now in genre is senior romance, particularly in the retirement communities. Wow. So I'd mentioned Madison Malloy. She's got a series coming out called Sweet Lips, Georgia. It's a romance series that she's writing, and it's about rich, wealthy women whose husbands pass away and they've got money and they're available. So it's fun. It's exciting. They're doing cool things. But where it's headed, it's niche content in the nonfiction space. And the fastest moving category of nonfiction is how-to books. So just like how to be a paid professional speaker, how to be a better dad when you've gone through divorce, how to write a book. So if you're writing poetry and memoir, that's the slowest moving category of book. And my advice is if you must write your memoir and you must tell your story, you've got to make it about the reader if you want to sell some books. So flip it, make it a how-to book, and the 3 things you learned going through your divorce, the 5 things you learned after losing a child, the 7 pillars of truth you discovered in your journey of life. So if you make it a how-to book, you can still tell your story. But where it's going more reality. It's going more when people buy your book, they don't just want your book, they also want your podcast, they want your YouTube channel, they want to consume all of your content. So you've got to make it easy for them when they go to AllisonTurner.com to find everything. So that's what they want. Because when they do a deep dive on you, they want everything you have. They're like, wow, this lady is great. You've got great stuff on Dream, Plan, Start, Grow. I'm going to dive into everything you have.
Okay.
So make your content not only snackable, but make it evergreen and put it out there everywhere. You know, I have 2 sons that are culinary chefs, and they tell me, Allison, they say, Dad, there's only 4 food groups. It's all about the preparation and the presentation. So know when to throw out the leftovers and know when to cook up a new dish. But keep them coming.
I like that. So if someone wanted to start a business, you know, because I've targeted, you know, people that want to start a business for this podcast as well as, you know, more seasoned business owners. If they wanted to start a business, do you recommend starting the business first and then writing a book? Would you recommend writing a book? I mean, especially if they had, you know, not obviously something about their business, you know, to launch the business, like what would you recommend for that?
Well, I would say do both at the same time. I mean, all the world's a stage, and we're all in this big experiment. And when it comes to business, it's all about proof of concept, right? When you see that you can build a better widget or you can provide a better service. I really love service businesses, which is one reason I think we've done so well here with our reviews. And you read our reviews, and they're all real. It's Get those crazy crypto reviews, right? People trying to sell crypto and Bitcoin on your reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, if you find a good service business and it's got a consumable product, that's one reason insurance does so well. It's because it's just consumable. You want to provide free content. You want to get people in the door sampling your services, and you want to build a subscription-based model. We've built a subscription-based model within our publishing company that gives 2 levels. They got a basic level and a platinum level of service for our clients. And it's basically for $100 or less a year, they can engage with all of our content, where we've done thousands of videos of how to get celebrity endorsements for your book, how to get more Amazon reviews, how to get your book into bookstores. That's all the kind of premium content they're getting. And plus every month we do a virtual hangout. We did one last night, and we had people from Australia to New York to LA, and it was just so much fun for a couple hours just sharing what's new in everybody's life. So it's really a community. So when you're starting a business and you've got your proof of concept and you know you're qualified to do it and you know you can create the margins to make it work, I always say keep your overhead low, keep your costs low and your margins high, particularly in the beginning. And certainly if you can work virtually, we were already working virtually pre-pandemic with 23 team members all over the US and a couple in Europe. So the pandemic didn't really hurt us as a publishing company. I was traveling a lot and went to 8 countries last year to support our authors. And so it never mattered. The year before that, I went to 14 countries. Everything just ran really fine. So ask yourself, could we start out virtually? Even if you're a restaurant, you can do pop-up stuff and you can get proof of concept stuff by going to events and setting up, doing a pop-up restaurant and things like that, doing a food truck as you segue into a brick and mortar restaurant, depending on what state and location you're in. So I'm all about proof of concept. I'm all about gathering testimonials. You had mentioned a testimonial you saw on our website with somebody you knew, and that's really important. That's really important. And then when you have somebody that's not happy, find out why they're not happy. Ask if you did something wrong. Was it something we promised that we didn't deliver? And 99.9% of the time, it's not something you promised that you didn't deliver. It's just that they had a perception that they were getting something that you didn't promise. So it's really a miscommunication. So I like to clear those things up before they go bad. And growing a business, it's always going to be challenging. It's always going to be fun. But if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business. If you don't have readers, you don't have a book. So you can write a book, but if nobody's reading the book, it's not impacting any lives. And so what do you want to do? Are you selling fun? Are you selling family? Are you selling atmosphere? Are you selling a community? At the end of the day, I think now, Allison, what a lot of people are looking for, because one of the biggest challenges in the U.S. and beyond is loneliness. People are just straight up lonely and feeling hopeless, and they're looking for a community to plug into that they can be a part of and feel like they're making a difference. And I think if you can create that, then you're going to create a repeat customer. I'll say this, with 759 titles published, that's 179 authors. Our average author does 4 books with us. And I think the reason they keep coming back and they keep referring to us, we haven't done any marketing. It's all been referrals. And I think they love coming back because they love the community and they feel like they're part of something that's making a difference. Right.
And I mean, you bring up that great point of the impact. And so I think, even when I do the business coaching, it's always like, who do you want to impact? Like, what's the impact? Is it businesses? Is it the world? Is it what's the bigger picture here on who you want to impact? How do you want to impact the world? How do you want to leave that legacy? And you make that great point, in books, it's the same thing. It's, who do you want to impact? And then how do you get that message out to the world?
It's all about impact. And so 3 years ago, we started 1040 Impact. We rescue girls from human trafficking in Asia. We have 4 safe houses here at 1040 Impact. We just did a rescue this week, rescuing 17 girls, last week 30, bringing our daily totals up to 375. These girls are from ages 4 to ages 17. Ages 4 to ages 17. We feed them, educate them, care for them. We've got a full-time staff, and they're being prepared for life. They're learning life skills. They don't have to go back into trafficking, and they're growing up in a safe family environment. And 30% of our publishing funds go to support 1040 Impact, and a lot of our individual authors have decided to become monthly donors as well to make a difference. So that's one way we're making an impact. A lot of my authors have their own nonprofits and stuff that they do. And so we love to support them. We just launched a book called Powerful Female Immigrants. It's a series where we've had 75 different women in this 3 different volumes, amazing stories of women from around the world. And a lot of them have their own nonprofits and do multifamily real estate. So I think the funnest thing for me, Allison, is if you find the story. Any new business you're doing, if it's a restaurant, if it's a service business, if it's a doggy daycare or a doggy grooming or a doggy hotel, I get doggies on my mind thinking of Daniel Spangler here, but whatever business you're in, if you're serving cupcakes or you're selling cars, you've got to create an epic story. And then you've got to create a why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And then you've got to focus on the story. And the more you can drill down and tell the story of who it is in that business and why you started that business and the lives you're changing and making an impact,
Right.
That's going to resonate, and then it's going to just catch like fire, and people will start. What you want is other people telling your stories. And that's the key I found for your stories to go viral. It's one thing for you to talk about you, but if you get other people talking about you, that's golden.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the story piece, because people want to relate to a real life story. They don't want to just hear, okay, you do this to start a business, you do this, you do this, you do this. And obviously that's concrete stuff to start a business. Or, like you said, if you want to publish your own book, you create the book cover, you write the book, you do, all the steps, but they want to connect to somebody behind that. So, if I can tell a story from my own business and have them connect, then they're more likely to buy from me or to recommend me, or like you said, share the story to someone else that maybe it's more beneficial to.
I walk into a Chick-fil-A, there's stories on the wall. I walk into a KFC, not very often. I love KFC. I have it once a year. I'll let myself have it. There's stories on the wall, right, about Colonel Sanders. I walk into Wendy's. I think Wendy's does the best job telling their story about Dave Thomas, and about Wendy's and supporting the kids and what they do. So I remember that. I've supported them in the past because I love their mission, but every time you get a Frosty, right, and a Wendy's burger, you're supporting them. So it's cool.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever noticed that. Now I don't go into fast food restaurants ever, but
well, when my kids were young, believe me, we traveled all over and we did a lot of those.
Right. Yeah. No, that's probably when I was in them more, but I'll have to make a point. Sometimes when I travel, if I drive places like in the country, like
even high-end hotels, you go into high-end hotels. I love looking at the oil paintings on the wall, the founders and all that's kind of cool stuff.
Yeah. No, especially those boutique hotels that are kind of a little different than the big chains that are out there nowadays.
I like those the most. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I want to go one question, then we'll start to wrap up. But so your 1040 impact, you said something, you said that you give your 30% of your profits go into that nonprofit. So that's you founded that nonprofit?
I am a founder and a board member, and all of my board members have gone to Pakistan and Asia to see our work over there on the ground and the 4 safe houses. So yeah, it's something I'll be a part of till the day I die. There's such a need and an opportunity there.
Yeah.
We actually have a printing press in Sahiwal, Pakistan, where we print books in Urdu. We do children's books there, and we do business books. Pakistan's a country of 200 million people, so there's a lot of opportunity there for us to impact people in entrepreneurship and in business and in faith and in life, to give those kids an opportunity. When I was 11, I stuttered, Allison, and you've heard my story that a school librarian gave me a book that was written by an 11-year-old kid, and that book changed my life, because here I am, an 11-year-old kid struggling. I'm just a nerd kid from small town Oklahoma with my library card maxed out. And she gives me this book, and I'm on the farm sitting out there in the pasture with my cows and my dog, summertime, looking up, reading this book, looking up at the sky, and I see these planes fly over. And something in my heart says, one day you're going to be on those planes and you're going to be flying all over the world, speaking to thousands of people. And I chose to believe that little voice in my head that came from that book, from that 11-year-old boy. And I believe that if that little 11-year-old boy can write a book that'll change a life, that can change my life and impact just 1 or 2 people, then I believe your book and your story can change the world. So let's jump on a Zoom call. People can jump on my calendar at meetwithmichaeld.com, and I'll give your listeners a free book consult. That's a free 30-minute book consult valued at $500. And I'll answer any questions about book title, who the reader is, market viability of the book, any questions you have about launching a book and what you've written so far. I'll be happy to give feedback on.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And one last question, and I always ask this of all my interviews. If you were to give one tip that has helped you in business, so it's helped you grow your company, your publishing company, that maybe you either knew starting out or you've learned along the way that would help someone that wants to start a business or that's newer in business, what would that tip be?
It's the advice my mom gave me when I started that lawn mowing company at age 15. And she said, Michael, pick up the phone. And I even posted about it on my Instagram and Facebook yesterday. I'm thinking about doing somebody called me this morning, so you needed to do a book called Everything I Learned in Business I Learned from Mom. And I may do that. That sounds like it's got some appeal. But Mom said this, when it'd be raining and Mrs. Jones and Miss Smith on Saturday, she'd say, call Miss Jones and Miss Smith, tell them you're not coming to mow the lawn. I would say, Mom, it's raining. They know I'm not going to come. I'll come mow it when it stops raining. She says, you pick up that phone and call them. The phone was so heavy. I didn't like picking up the phone and talking to little old ladies, but she made me pick up that phone. It was so heavy, and I would call them. And that advice that my mom gave me to pick up the phone and call my customer has not only made me millions of dollars, but it's helped me retain millions of dollars in business because it's all about touching the customer. So that was the best advice I ever got. The best advice I give myself is don't wait till it's perfect. Start the day. Do it now, because tomorrow you're going to wish you would have started today. Go ahead, write that book, do that video, do that post, make that phone call. It'll never be perfect. Don't worry about your hair being perfect, your voice being perfect, your makeup being perfect. Just do it, because tomorrow might be too late.
Yep. Absolutely. And that website again for the free the consultation is?
Yeah, the free consultation, meetwithmichaeld.com. Just go to meetwithmichaeld.com and get on my calendar. I can't wait to meet you in person.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks, Allison. Fun interview.
Yeah. No, thank you for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Dream Plan Start Grow show. I truly love working with new business owners or those who want to start a business. So if you have any questions for me, you can go to my website, dreamplanstartgrow.com. And I also have a complimentary consultation on there. So please join me, and I look forward to meeting you. Thanks for tuning in to the Dream Plan Start Grow podcast with Allison Turner. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Join the Dream Plan Start Grow community by following us on Facebook or Instagram at Dream Plan Start Grow. See you in the next episode.